Hey, let me start, Tony. Mike Barber from Richmond, with John Rudzinski from Air Force. Most of what they ran there was odd front, 3-4 based. I know it can be multiple, but were you looking for a coach who ran that 3-4 scheme? Is that something you believe in? And was that important in terms of meshing with the personnel you have there already at Virginia?
Right, good question, Mike. For me, it was more finding a guy who understood how to coach a certain type of individual, how to recruit a certain type of individual, considering the academic requirements that are part of our program. Not so much tied to the 3-4 scheme because I believe in being multiple. When you break him down, he's probably 50% four down. And then the ability to be multiple. So it was more of a transition and then the ability to build from there. But I think nowadays you have to be multiple with what people are doing on offense. You got to change things up. You cannot sit still. You cannot just line up. I know as an offensive guy, if you just lined up in one particular front all day long, it made it a lot easier for me to put together a plan. But biggest thing is I wanted a guy that was passionate about young people first and foremost. And if you have a chance to meet John and talk to him, you'll see that he's very, very passionate about young people. Very, very high football IQ. I understand some of my limitations as a young coach. I'm an offensive guy. Understand defense, but I've never coached on the defensive side of the ball. So I need somebody with experience that could manage that side of the room as I, over the years get up to speed with the defensive side of the ball. But he comes highly, highly respected, highly, highly recommended, and I'm just grateful that he had an interest in coming to the University of Virginia. Had an opportunity to visit with him out in San Antonio, then bring him back on campus. And I think it's going to be an exciting time for the guys because of his ability to dissect offense from week to week. He'll be able to put them in a position to be successful, and then over time we'll be able to recruit to his style of play.
Thank you.
Hey, Tony, this is Jeff White from VirginiaSports.com. Chris Slade has talked about how you two got to know each other when he was at Pace Academy.
Mm-hmm.
How well did you know the other assistants you hired before they joined the staff here? And are there any guys in the group that you would talk to about working with once you became a head coach?
Right. So if you look at the 10 assistants, outside of the three that were retained, and then Coach Rudzinski and Coach Cox, all the other guys have long-standing relationships, and it was really, really important for me. Chris, recruiting his school over time, developed a relationship, and I told him, I said, look, I chased two big linemen at your school. They went somewhere else. I can't go 0 for 3 on you. So you're destined to be the one that I actually get out of Pace Academy. But that relationship has been developing over the last 5-6 years. Recruiting his school, also just the way that he talks about Virginia. I knew that it was an opportunity, and he was very thoughtful in this process, and he's always wanted to come back home, but he's also made it clear that he wanted to come back in the right situation, and so I'm very grateful that he believes in me and that this is the right time for him to come back and help us restore the glory, so to speak. Des and I, we almost had an opportunity to work together. Well, we did work together for about a week at Furman. He was coming to be the offensive coordinator. I was going to be the receiver coach, and then we both got opportunities to transition on. So I went to Clemson, he went to Air Force, and we've been talking about it for years, trying to link back up. And again, very, very honored that he would leave the NFL to come back and be a part of what we're trying to build here. And then Keith Gaither and Kevin Downing have known those guys since I began my career. They started in the HBCU ranks like me. I was at South Carolina State. They were at Winston-Salem, and we competed against each other. And then all of us transitioned there from the MEAC to the Southern Conference. And then once I went to Clemson, they kind of went on their own paths. They didn't realize that I was interviewing them over my career. So very excited for those guys. And then also, it was a match made in heaven, so to speak. They're coming from Army and Navy, respectively, and their backgrounds in recruiting, high academic, high character young men, being able to put together plans when maybe you might not have as much as everybody else. So they understand, the importance of that. So those guys were guys that I've known for a very, very long time. And I tell you what, I'm really, really excited about the three guys that decided to stay on. Marcus Hagans, I think you guys know, man. If there was one person that everybody said that you had to keep, it was Marcus Hagans. And 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 I'm seeing that now, having a chance to be around him. He's got an unbelievable presence, very, very humble, relates very, very well to the players. He knows the University of Virginia, so I'm excited that he decided to stay. But I knew of him, but I didn't know him personally prior to coming to the University of Virginia. And 2J, man, he gets after it on and off the field in recruiting. He's tenacious. He dreams big, a lot like I do. Obviously, when you dream big, there's going to be times where you get disappointed, but that never stops his confidence. The players loved him. I gave the players an opportunity to voice their opinion on who they wanted to stay, and all of his guys had nothing but great things to say about him. And then Clint, Clint is a quiet guy, but he's a very deliberate guy. He's an intentional guy. Obviously, a great player here, great relationships with his players on the staff. He's from the state of Virginia, so I didn't know him prior to, but the more time I spent around him, I'm excited about where his future is going to go as a coach. And then Jerome Cox and John, I met through this process. But I thought there was some commonality between John and I with our backgrounds at Air Force. Obviously, his was much more extensive than mine, but there was a connection there. And then Jerome being from this area, having played at Maryland, but he's from Virginia, played in the NFL, and he was a guy that John said if there was one coach that he could bring with him, that was his guy. And I felt like I owed that to John to at least consider him. And when he came on the interview, then it was confirmed, and I had the conviction that it was the right move to make. Yep. Don't think I missed anybody. I think I got everybody. Oh, and then Taylor Lamb, the quarterback coach. So I've known Taylor since he was a youngster, working for his dad. But for him, he earned it on his own. If you watched him and followed him over his career, he was an outstanding player at App State, and then he's taken the traditional route. Not trying to leverage, his family's association with football and connections, and he's a guy that's got an unbelievable amount of confidence, a great amount of knowledge, and I felt like it was going to be a good fit with his personality and his youth, as we assembled that offensive room.
Greg Medina from the Daily Progress here in Charlottesville. I guess I would just ask with your offensive staff, as you have so many new guys coming together to work for the first time, what's the process like of actually putting together the offense? You guys sharing ideas, or is that fun?
Right.
Too, when you get together
So
for the first time?
it's unique for me because for the last, 11 years, I've been a part of those meetings. Now I'm turning it over to Dez. But Dez and I have spent enough time in the off season and collaborating throughout the course of the season to be on the same page. And so Dez will run those meetings as he's installing. They've already started today, back in the offense, doing some observation of the guys working out, just to create a presence so the guys know we're back in town. And then they're using the last half of the day to start talking about the details. But it's been fun to see those guys interact, because there's been a lot of exchange of questions. Also a lot of exchange of techniques, of different way of doing things. And so I'm excited because it really, I'm anxious to see what it's going to look like, because you have my background coming from a tempo offense that morphed into what it was at Clemson over the last 5 or 6 years, and then you have Des Kitchens, who's coming from the NFL, running an NFL system, and then also his experience with Matt Canada, and then also Eli Drinkwitz at NC State, and then you got Taylor Lamb bringing his experience. He was at South Carolina about the time Des was at South Carolina. Then you got 2J and his experience, and Marcus's experience, and then Keith also bringing his experience from the service academy. So it's going to be an offense that I don't know if you can put a label on it right now. It's going to be the Virginia offense, and it's going to fit the personnel that we have. Anxious to see the guys move around. There'll be some base concepts. It's going to be like anything else. You're going to have your base core runs. You're going to have your quick game concepts, your play action passes, your deep shots, your move the pocket. All of those you'll have core, and then over time, as the personnel develops, then you'll be able to do some more of the unique things to our system.
Next up, we'll have Preston, Jackie, and Damon.
Hey Tony, Preston Will with CBS 19 here in Charlottesville. Wanted to ask, it kind of seems like you have two different themes working with this coaching staff. You have the service academies, so I wanted to see how that helps and how kind of why you targeted coaches with that background. And then also you have the alumni, you got Chris Slade, Clint Sintum, and Marcus Hagans there, and how does that help you as well as you're getting your roots in at UVA?
Okay, if I just go back to my background, I went to the Air Force Academy, prep school for a year, received my appointment, and then transferred to Clemson, coached at Furman, which is a high academic school, been at Clemson in the ACC, and so as I got to University of Virginia and really tried to look at, okay, what's going to be the profile of the student athlete that you're going to have to recruit to be successful here. It's more closer to what I experienced at the Air Force Academy and at Furman, and so I understand during my time at Furman some of the challenges that you have, and then some of the unique things you have to do in recruiting, just in terms of the discipline. You obviously want to get the biggest, fastest, strongest guys that you can, but sometimes those guys aren't fit to be successful academically and socially in certain environments. And so the guys from the service academies understood that piece of the equation, how to target certain type of young men that will fit our profile. And then also, in the short term, understanding how to be able to do more with less. And I think that if we can keep that mindset as we increase the level of talent, and we have that foundation of doing more with less, we'll be able to maximize the ability of the guys that we recruit in the future. The former players, philosophically, this program is about building men, and what I want the players that are on this roster to see is that, man, I could become a coach on the staff. So I can come here as a young man, not really sure what I want to do in life, but I have living, breathing examples of guys that went through the process, started where I started, and now look where they're at. So just bringing in and reinforcing that family feel. So it was really, really intentional as I built the staff. I know it took probably a lot longer than some people wanted, but I wanted to make sure that I got the right pieces, on the bus and in the right seats, so we can hit the ground running with this upcoming year.
Jackie with Wahoo's 24/7.
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of jumping off from Preston's question, when you're trying to get your staff together, I remember in an introductory press conference you were saying how in-state recruiting, you wanted to take back the state, recruit the guys that fit the profile that you wanted for UVA. When you looked at the staff, did you figure, okay, I needed to get guys that already have some fairly big relationships in the state, like those guys that have UVA connections, but also guys that have recruited in a 6-hour radius around the University of Virginia? Was that something you consciously went out there when you were looking at systems?
For the most part, that wasn't the ultimate decision maker. For me, it started with making sure first and foremost that they're good men. That these guys are good men of character. That's where it starts for me. Guys that are really, really good teachers and then have the ability to recruit. I think if you get the first two right, recruiting will take care of itself, because at the end of the day, recruiting is still about relationships. But I did want to have a mixture of guys that have ties to the state. I knew what it was like to grow up in South Carolina and then play for one of the in-state schools. And so it's good to have, guys. You got 3 guys on the staff that played here, that are from the state, that have relationships in their respective areas. And then you have 2J, who's a guy that's been in state for the last 6 years recruiting, but then also has some West Coast ties. Because, again, I think at some point, you want to build your brand to where you can go national, not making that your focus, but you can go national to supplement. And then also guys, like you said, that are close, that are recruited. Now, Coach Brzezinski doesn't really have any ties to Virginia, but that was a unique fit. I needed a defensive coordinator, and so that might not have been the priority in his position. His job is to come and to lead the defense, and then support him with guys that can go help recruit until he develops those relationships. But for me, the focus when I say in-state is more so just being transparent, being authentic, trying to connect, just building relationships and showing that we're serious about making a commitment to the guys in state, and then also helping educate the coaches on what we're looking for as well. But then biggest thing was I wanted to get on the road and get in front of as many coaches as I can, just so they can put a true face with a name and shake a hand and realize that, yes, I may be the head coach at the University of Virginia, but man, I'm a guy just like that. I'm a football coach. I'm nothing special. I'm just a regular guy that, fortunately, the Lord's blessed me with some gifts that have led to me being in this position, but I'm still just a football coach with the same intentions and motivations as them, which is to help young people use the game and not be used by the game.
Hey, Tony, Damon Dillon from Cavs Corner. Kind of following up on that, and you mentioned this at the outset too, but just what has the reception been from those coaches as you relay that message, as you've kind of gone around the state and met all these coaches all over the place.
Right. So I think about a story of my first job. I remember I was so excited to go recruiting, and I pulled up to a school, and man, I'm excited. I'm a young coach. Nobody had told me that the relationship had been strained. So I show up, and man, the coach just undressed me. Like, he undressed me, and he let me know how upset he was with this particular school. And I had to take it, and I really didn't. I'm like, Coach, I don't know what to say other than I'm sorry, and I hope over time I'll be able to prove that I'll do things differently. So I was expecting that there was going to be, because I had heard that both of the schools in state hadn't done a great job over the last couple of years of really making the in-state schools a priority. So I was anticipating that there was going to be, a little bit of tension that I was going to have to overcome. But to be honest with you, every school that I went to, they were excited to see us. Now, I brought some reinforcements. So I was smart and I was strategic. So when we went down to the beach, I made sure that Marcus and Slade walked in there first. So they were the celebrities and I was just a tag along. You see, I was out. So I think that helped, especially down in the Tidewater area. But we had a really, really good reception, to be honest. It was much better than I anticipated, because I thought there was going to be, a little bit of tension, and I was going to have to, mend some relationships. And I think the biggest thing is the coaches in state just want to see their guys stay home, and they want both schools to come in and recruit their guys and give their guys an opportunity to play for the state that they love. So it was a really, really good reception, a little bit better than I was anticipating. I was prepared, to kind of just stand there and take it. Like I did that first one, and then prove my worth over time. But I was received very, very well, and I think a lot of it had to do with some of the guys that, even though they may not have signed guys in the past, they did a good job of recruiting in their area and had good relationships.
Next we'll go to David Teal, Jerry Radcliffe, and then Dr. Whiteworm.
Yep.
Tony, David Teal with the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Just want to go back to your Clemson time, where you were fortunate enough to compete in 6 college football playoffs. There's been a lot of talk the last 7 months on the merits of expanding the playoff from 4 to 12 teams, and also the toll that might take on players with the additional games. And wondered, from your personal experience, what your views are.
Whew. 15 games is a long season. It's a long season, especially when you start in the end of July. So you got 4 weeks. You don't play preseason games, but you're still practicing and preparing. So it's the equivalent of 2 to 3 additional games. So you're talking about adding to that, which is already at a long season for the collegiate athlete. So I think it's a noble idea to give more teams an opportunity to be able to get into the playoff. I want it to be done, if it is done, in such a way that it doesn't diminish the importance of every single game. That's what's so beautiful, in my opinion, about college football, is every single game matters. Like right now, I think we're watching the NFL, and you see that there's a total different level of play in the playoffs than the regular season. And so if you can construct it in a way where you don't diminish the importance of every single game on the schedule, then I'm all for it. Also, time management for these student athletes. So now we're talking about expanding the playoff. Now we got NIL. We haven't taken anything off their plate from an academic standpoint. We haven't taken anything off their plate from a football standpoint. And now we're elongating the season. And we learned, too, that just from a player safety standpoint, you have to modify your entire schedule. And so I think that you have to look at the whole schedule, the 365-day calendar, and not just the expansion of the playoffs, but you got to look at how that's going to impact the entire calendar year for a student athlete. So there's a lot of things that I'm in favor of, but I also have some reservations, and I want to see it done the right way, because at the end of the day, these are still student athletes. It's still a collegiate model, and I want to make sure that you don't lose sight of the integrity of the collegiate model as you expand and add all these other things to the plate. I think we all know in our lives, as we add responsibilities, we add things we need to take away. And so I think if you're going to add, I want to see what's going to be taken away.
Hey, Tony, Jerry Radcliffe from JerryRadcliffe.com.
Yes, sir.
Just curious, you mentioned a little bit about putting the offense together. How much influence will you have in that room, or in the planning, forming what kind of philosophy you want, as opposed to all the other coaches you mentioned will have and input, but how much will you take from your personal experience and as opposed as to what you want, as opposed to maybe Dez or some of the other guys?
I think that this is a fun time for me because it allows me to expand on what I want to do holistically offensively. I think at Clemson we had a great system, but it was the same system for 11 years, and there was a lot of comfort, and we had recruited to that system, and so we kind of stayed in our mold. We ventured off a little bit each year just to fit the personnel, but I'm excited about being able to expand and doing a couple more things. So it's going to start from where I'm comfortable, but I'm going to give Dez and those guys the opportunity to expand it as long as we make sure that when we add things, we take things away, everything is sound and it fits our personnel. So I'm excited, and I can't say what percentage until we get into those meetings later this spring and really sit down. But I also understand too how difficult it is to be a coordinator and then have an offensive head coach that that's really, really involved. And so what I've said is I want to become the head coach, and I want to focus on the other areas of the game management and allow my offensive coordinator to be able to do it. Give my input, but that input will come throughout the course of the week, so I can free myself up to be available to manage the offense. And I think you're seeing some of the challenges. I was thinking watching the game the other night, just kind of getting myself in the head coach mode and calling plays and then trying to clock management and manage defense. There's a lot of things that I have to experience and get a grasp of. So I'm excited to let Dez do it, but you'll still see a little bit of my fingerprint on it.
Good. Mike Barber, hold on 3 seconds so we get to Jermaine Farrell and Ahmad Hawkins.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Coach. We appreciate you giving us time today. I wanted to ask you about one of your guys getting an opportunity to play in the Super Bowl, and T. Higgins. Just your thoughts about him. What did you see him as he played at Clemson, and then what are you seeing him doing in the NFL right now?
Right. One, I wish I could see more of what he's doing in the NFL. I tell you what, I hadn't been able to watch any of the playoff games. We've been going hard with recruiting, and most of our official visits are during the time of the playoff game on Saturday, and then we finish up right into the playoff game on Sunday. But T. Higgins, first and foremost, so proud of him, considering where he came from and the obstacles that he had to overcome early in his life. Just his commitment to stay true. He transitioned. He was a big basketball guy, and so he made a decision to transition to football, and it's really, really paying off. But he was an extremely hard worker, no nonsense guy, didn't say a whole lot. Showed up every single day. He took coaching, and now you're seeing that being displayed. I think he went over 1,000 yards for the season with the Bengals. So really, 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 really happy for him and excited for him and his opportunity. And then you got Jackson Carman, who's in that game as well as a teammate playing on the offensive line. Not sure how much he played last week because I didn't get to see the game, but I know he's excited being a hometown guy. And then can't forget about DJ Reader. I was at Clemson with DJ Reader. Really, really happy for DJ Reader. Man, that's one of the best athletes that I've been around. Big boy was a first baseman. He was a dual sport guy. Not many people talk about that big D tackle that's running around wrecking havoc. That dude was a pitcher and a first baseman. So really excited for all three of those guys getting an opportunity, and then Tremaine on the other side with the Rams. So I'm excited for all those guys to get an opportunity to fulfill a dream of playing in the NFL and playing in the Super Bowl.
Thanks, sir.
How you doing, Coach? Jamal Hawkins here from the Ball Hawk Show. I just wanted to ask you about the statement that you made about your coaches doing more with less. Is that something that you look for when you were trying to establish your coaching staff? Does that help with the transition of being the first-time head coach before you can actually recruit the guys that fit your system and what you want to do?
Great question. I think a lot of it also stems, just from my path to get to where I am, starting at South Carolina State and then at Furman. When you start as an FCS guy, you do it all. You have to do everything. You're the coach, you're the counselor, you're the academic liaison, the housing liaison, financial aid liaison. You paint the fields, you wash the clothes. You do a little bit of everything. And so that mindset is where it starts, because I wanted to have people that were like-minded, that were self-motivated, because obviously it doesn't matter the talent level. you still have to figure out how to get the most out of each and every player. And so just that mindset, and that's the mindset that I want to create in this football team, that we got a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. We don't mind being the underdog. We're going to scrap and fight, and people are not going to necessarily think about us as starting out as the big dogs on the block, and we got to go earn that. And so there was definitely some intentionality on that of making sure, but I think also that's going to carry forward too when you are able to increase the talent level through recruiting, being able to have that mindset. And so taking those high profile guys as they come through, and being able to get them to buy into that as well. So it's a combination of just how I started, and people will tell you that have been around me. I've always tried to remain in that mode. Even as the coordinator at Clemson, I would type up my own scripts. I did my game plans on my own. I just didn't like letting people do those things for me, because I wanted to stay grounded, and I wanted to maintain that hunger and that drive and that appreciation for where I started. And so that was what really influenced me to start with there, and then also looking at the state of the roster. Obviously, Coach Bronco did a great job, and let me just kind of take a segue to say that, man, I'm really, really, really grateful and appreciative of the time that I got to spend with Coach Bronco. And man, he worked his butt off, and his staff did an unbelievable job of taking the program from where they inherited it to when he decided to step away, and he built a solid foundation. And I'm just excited that it timed up to where I believe I can come in and bring that championship layer, to the program. But there is a transition that from a body type standpoint, and just a philosophy and strength and conditioning. And that's because I've lived that, and I've experienced it, and I've seen how it is successful. And so early on, we're going to have to work with what we got, and we're not going to complain about it. We're not going to make no excuses. I believe that these young men, by the time we hit the field in September, are going to have the right mindset and understanding, and play to a certain standard, and hopefully that standard is good enough to win. But it's going to be what our standard is, and that standard is going to be the best that we got. But in the meantime, I need coaches that want to get in there and grind, and are truly excited about building something. I think that was important too, looking at the staff, that they really, really shared the vision and were excited to get in and let's just go grind and build this thing, from where Bronco left it to where we believe it can go.
We're closing out half an hour. I don't know what your schedule's like.
No, we're good.
Time for a few more?
We're good. Yeah, we're good.
All right, we'll go back to the top two. We'll go Mike Barber, Jeff White, and Greg.
Hey, Coach, thanks for hanging around for
Oh
another
yeah,
one.
no problem.
I had a chance to talk to Coach Smotherman, and I know every new coach has their branding for their program. He mentioned two things I wanted to ask you about. The HEART acronym.
Mm-hmm.
I want you could take me through that and how you use that with your players. And then also, you talked about you talking to the staff about developing the model program in college football.
Okay.
What is you and what do you want us to know about that?
Oh, great question. Thank you, Coach Schmo, for setting that up for me. But so HEART, that was something that I started, several years ago with the running backs at Clemson, and it kind of stemmed from we wanted to be the heartbeat of the team, and then always talking about, the heart of a champion. That was something that we talked about at Clemson. But for me, HEART, everything stems from your heart. There's the one thing that you can't measure in football is a player's heart, and we talk about it all the time. We talk about guys that play with heart. You know it when you see it, but you can't really describe it. So I wanted to put some tangible things to it to help these guys understand what I believed a person with heart would display. Humility. So it starts with humility, always trying to get better, understanding that regardless of the success that you have, you're no better than anybody else. It's always about your teammates. So humility, effort. Effort is a non-negotiable. If you're going to be successful in anything that you do in life, you got to try. Accountability. Accountability, and I think that sometimes accountability gets confused with discipline. Accountability to me is the ability to recognize that you need change, and then to change the way that you think in order to bring about that change. And then respect for everything. Respect starting for yourself, your family, your high school, your community, your teammates. Just having a respect, which I think is slowly being lost as a value in our society. I think that a lot of us came up that respect was earned. Now everybody wants respect to just be given. So just having that mindset that, man, every day I got to work, but it starts with me showing respect to myself and everybody else, and then the respect will be given to me that I desire from everybody else. And then toughness to be able to to do the things that are right, even if everybody else is not doing what's right. So that's what the HEART acronym is. And the mission of the program is I want to build champion men through the game of football. But I think you got to be intentional with how you service these young men. And I think you got to focus on servicing their heart, those things that we just talked about, those core values, as opposed to their talent. I think in college football, it's easy with the pressure to win, with everything that's at stake, to see young men as commodities. And all you really focus on is their talent and how they can help you be successful as a coach. But I believe that if you can impact that young man's heart, then you're going to maximize his talent. And then you know what? It's a win-win for everybody. And when I say model program, I want the program to be a win-win for everybody. I don't want it to be a win just for the University of Virginia, right? Or I don't want it just to be a win for the student athlete. Let's go and win this thing together, meaning that when you leave, my care, I want you to walk away with what matters most. That's your degree, transferable life skills, and a great appreciation for your college experience, and then having a chance to win a championship. And also with the model program, showing that you can still compete and have success at the highest level, but not have to compromise, the things that are truly important, which is academics first and foremost. I think that, and one thing that I've said to the players, we're all living in a climate where a lot of people are hypersensitive. We're always trying to protect, so many different things. But the one way in our country that you can legally discriminate is based off of education level. And I don't know many people that are fighting to level that playing field. Right? I think it's always going to be that way. And so at the end of the day, it's about education. It's about educating these young men and preparing them for life after football. But you can do that and still win at the highest level. And and to be honest with you, it's hard for me to comprehend how you can tip the scales, and think that you can win at the highest level, but then not, educate and develop people along the way. So when I say model program, just meaning that, man, we're going to do it the right way. We're going to be student athlete focused, and the focus is to help these young men prepare for life. And in the process, I believe the byproduct is going to be a team that plays hard for each other, a team that's connected, a team that believes, and then those are going to produce the results over time that we so desire on the football field.
Thank you. Hey, Tony, who is going to coach the tight ends,
Yep.
and how are you going to divide up special teams?
Good question. So Des Kitchens will coach the tight ends, and so I had some flexibility, coming in. Keith Gaither is a wild card guy. He's an outstanding coach. He could coach. He played defensive back in college. He played. He's coached receivers. He's coached tight ends, and so he was a guy that initially I thought, okay, let's get him back home on defense. But then when Coach Rosinski asked if I would take a look at Carome, I knew I could move Keith back over to offense. So Keith is going to coach the running backs, and he's also going to be my special teams coordinator. So special teams will go through Coach Gaither at the running back position. Des will be the OC, and he'll have the tight ends, and then all of us will support on the special teams. And then you also have Drew Meyer, who's an analyst who can't coach on the field, but he'll be instrumental in the preparation process each week as we get ready for special teams. And that's an area where I want to spend a lot of my time as well. I think you have a chance to touch everybody, all the players on the roster when you're involved in special teams. And when you talk about three phases, it's easy nowadays to get guys excited to play offense, guys excited to play defense, but it's hard for them, to get excited about special teams sometimes. And so I want to help create that sense of urgency, and then also get the other coaches involved with segments that apply to them. For instance, Slade and Downing helping with the field goal block team, because that's their guys. But they don't necessarily need to be running down on kickoff because there's no D lineman on kickoff, so they'll have extra time. But I'm going to be over there on kickoff, and the coaches that have their players that are on kickoff helping support Coach Gaither as he installs the kickoff. So we just create a different level of urgency and accountability, and then it also drives into the position meeting rooms because the coaches are a part of helping coach those segments.
Hey, Tony,
Yep.
just wanted to ask you about Brennan coming back,
Mm-hmm.
making that decision to come back. How thrilled were you, I guess, first of all, and what does that mean for your team going forward?
Really excited, really excited for him to be able to go through the process, to be able to come to a place of contentment with his decision, and really excited that place was to come back to the University of Virginia. I think there's some things that he has in his mind, some unfinished business, some things that he wants to work on and prepare for the next level. But his leadership, and just the way the guys rally around him, his presence is huge. So it's going to be big for us, going forward, because I think that, some of the strengths is the quarterback position, the wide receiver position. Offensive line took a hit, but I'm excited about how we've been able to respond in this recruiting cycle. I know we got an opportunity to address some short-term needs and then also some long-term needs there. Same thing on the defensive line. We got an opportunity to finish out with some needs there. So I think that it was big because at the end of the day, to win where we're trying to go, you got to have a trigger man. You got to have a trigger man that can be able to manage the game, that can perform in critical situations through his experience, and then a guy that just has a tenacity and a desire to win, which we all know are traits that Brennan possesses.
Okay, we're going to finish up with Preston, Jackie, Damon, and Jerry real quick.
All right.
Hey Tony, this is kind of an out there question, but it's kind of a unique situation with Jay Wolfhook, and he's also playing baseball this spring. Was there a conversation with him, and how did you know about that plan when you kind of came on?
Man, first of all, I love it. I'm a baseball guy. I love baseball. I thought I was going to be playing Major League Baseball when I was a kid. You couldn't tell me anything different. I thought I was Darryl Strawberry 2.0, but I played catcher. I don't know how that didn't make sense. But he was my favorite player. But growing up in California, I love baseball. So, and I also love dual sport athletes. So Coach O'Connor and I, we talked about it, and hey, he's a guy that can help the team and can really help the team. Then he needs to go focus on baseball for the first part of the spring and get himself ready to go, and then we'll transition him back and get him a part of what we're doing from a football standpoint. So coming in, that wasn't something that said, hey, your backup quarterback or your number 2 quarterback is a dual sport guy, but I've had experience with it. I actually love it. Biggest thing is if a guy can help one of the other teams in the athletic department, man, I'm all for it.
I remember when in the introductory press conference talking about recruiting a locker room first.
Yeah.
That was your biggest thing you wanted to do. And you mentioned Brennan coming back, but also Famuyi's coming back, Sue's coming back. Those guys were in the transfer portal and then decided to stay. Now, how have you seen this team kind of buy into, building that model program in heart? It seems those two really bought in right away because they decided to stay.
Right, and I wish I would have had a little bit more time with some of the other guys that decided to leave, just to give them a true understanding of who I am and the staff that I was going to put together. But really excited for those guys. We had conversations. We sat down, and I told them, you just got to trust me that I'm going to put together the best staff that I possibly can, and that staff is going to be comprised of men that are going to help you grow first and foremost off the field, and then also have the skill and the expertise to be able to develop you on the field. So recruiting your locker room, especially in this day and age, is critical. And now that we're off the road, that's the number one priority for the staff, is just to get back re-engaged with the guys, and then also doing some things, just showing my commitment on some of the things that I changed immediately when I got into the program. Some areas that I thought needed to be addressed that are player specific, that are very impactful to their day to day, to give them the best opportunity to perform on the field and then also in the classroom. So it's been fun to see these guys start to work together. And you talked about Coach Schmo. That was the first person that I hired in this process, because the strength and conditioning coach and his staff, they spend the most amount of time with the players. I can set the vision. I can have all of the processes in place, but those are the boots on the ground that are touching those guys every single day. So I think the energy, the excitement, the change in philosophy from a training standpoint, the guys have really bought in. Nutritionally, we're making a big push to educate these guys on the importance of their nutrition, which directly impacts their ability to perform. So I think a combination of them seeing the staff, the commitment that's being made from a nutrition and a strength and conditioning standpoint has created the excitement. And I think as these guys continue to work, they're going to see progress. They're already starting to see, some change in their bodies. They really like what Coach Schmo's doing in the weight room. So I'm excited, and now it's our job as coaches to help these guys continue to lay the foundation through the rest of the spring. Because after the spring, coaches go on the road recruiting, and the NCAA says, hey, there's only so many hours a day that the coaches can have their hands on them, but they get 8 to 10 hours with the strength and conditioning staff. And then at that point, it's going to be on the strength and conditioning staff and the players to start building the house, because that's kind of the thing that we use for the season. We're building a house worthy of being in a championship district when it's all said and done. Or I should say championship neighborhood.
Tony,
Go ahead, Jerry.
Go ahead, Hootie.
oh, I'm sorry, okay. Every new head coach has to go through the transition from a position coach to the CEO. How have you handled that? Can it be overwhelming at times? And if you have a guru you can go to, if you have a question about something like that, and would that guru be Dabo or someone else in your work?
Right. So the transition is create these bags under my eyes. Oh my gosh. It's long. I had long days as an assistant, but as a head coach, it's long days, and it's actually a lot more intense. And I know that may sound strange, but every minute of the day you're being pulled in 1,000 different directions, and so really it's the ability to capture your thoughts and maintain your thought while you're entertaining another thought in another conversation. That's been the biggest adjustment for me, is being able to say, okay, I'm thinking about this, but then somebody needs this. I got to be able to hold on to this thought and then be fully present right here, and then it just keeps going. And by the end of the day, you've had numerous situations like that. So then you got to sit down at the end of the day, and then you're into the bed at night still thinking about everything that's going on. So it's a good problem, but it's just a lot. It's just there's so many things until I'm able to process it all, figure it out, and then say, okay, let's delegate. Right now, because we're blending kind of two staffs, the guys that I brought in, and then I kept a lot of the people in operations. Again, Bronco had this thing set up very systematic, and the process was rolling, and so I didn't want to just blow that up. I wanted to have a great understanding to trying to keep some continuity for the kids on the roster. So trying to figure those two aspects out and how to blend it together, and then you're recruiting, and then you got donors, and then you got hiring coaches, and then you got your wife calling, and then then you got all kind of stuff going on. So it's just been a whirlwind. It's been a lot, but it's all good problems. It's all good things. And I'll call Coach Sweeney. I'll call Coach McCorvey down at Clemson. A matter of fact, I'm glad you reminded. I need to call Coach Sly back, Coach Kroom. He's a guy that I've been leaning on throughout the last couple of years from a head coaching standpoint. So those would be the top three guys that I will lean on to help me navigate going forward.
Tony, you were talking about some of the guys who came back, Brennan and some of the guys on defense. Keaton Thompson's obviously another one, and he's the versatility that he brings. How much are you guys as an offensive staff looking forward to kind of seeing how you can mess with that and get him involved in a variety of different ways? And then one other last one quickly. Mm-hmm. What's the plan for jersey numbers?
Great question. Matter of fact, I just had that conversation about the jersey, so I'll touch that first and then go back to KT. What I'm thinking is, going back to what you were saying there, Jerry, you want to eliminate as many problems as you can. And trust me, jersey numbers can be the number one problem for a head coach, is figuring out jersey numbers. So I'm leaning towards kind of leaving them where they are, maybe giving the older guys that's their last go around an opportunity to change, a sign for the younger guys. And then as guys want to change their number, they got to wait for guys to transition out of the program. Just because that's one thing that if I can eliminate the headache there, I want to eliminate the headache there. So that's the initial thought. But I do want to talk with, matter of fact, I've been talking with Brendan about it. I do want to talk to a couple of the older guys and see their thoughts on it, because I know that system was completely different than what I've ever been around. And so I want to be sensitive to the process that they had in place. But I also don't want it to become a distraction. Like numbers, I know numbers are important, but at the end of the day, your number ain't making no tackles. Right, your numbers not catching the ball. You got to go out there and make plays. Let's focus on the things that are really important that are going to, contribute to our success on Saturdays. And then KT, KT's a guy that Des and I have been talking about, very similar to the Samuels guy that they had at NC State, because he could do it all. He could line up in the backfield. He played tight end. He played receiver. He'd be a wildcat quarterback. So I'm really, really excited about KT. It kind of just hinges on where his body transforms and transitions this offseason to see what all roles we can put him in and feel comfortable. But he's a guy that has a skill set that he's going to have to touch the ball. He'll be a guy that'll have a touch chart, like saying, hey, KT's got to touch the ball this many times a game for us to have a chance to be successable.
Coach, one last thing for this group, with the schedule coming out in about 5 hours. Without giving out any details, you've seen it, just give them a quick, what was your reaction when you saw your schedule for 2022?
All right, so I'm acting like I was pulling it up. I was like, I saw the email and I was like, oof. All right, boys, here you go, first one. Oh, okay. So actually, I think it sets up pretty good with the open week being about mid-season. So I think we have a chance to kind of get off to a good start, and then we have a stretch there at the end with a couple of home games that are big games for us. So I was pleasantly surprised when I saw the schedule. There's a couple challenging situations with some untraditional games that you're playing at different times, different days, but overall, I thought the flow of it. Now I have to wait until everybody's schedule comes out to see if there's situations where people are coming off a bye week prior to the time that they play us. You want to be cognizant of that. But I felt like with where we started, it's an opportunity for us to get off to a good start, and then mid-season, take a little bit of a break and regroup and get healthy, and then get ready for a strong finish down the stretch with an opportunity to play several key games at home.